Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the host of Camp Blood Media, the horror channel, Josh Weaver. Josh, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Ken. I'm doing great, Ken. Thanks for having me on the channel. I'm really excited to get interviewed for my first horror movie. I got a lot to tell you about it.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited. I'm so glad to have you here. But before we get into that, for those of you that don't know, over at Camp Blood Media, they do reviews, reactions, rankings, so much more than that. And I have all their links down here in the description, social media, and the such. So make sure you guys are checking out Camp Blood Media. Josh is doing a great job over there. So what can you tell us about Camp Blood Media before we get started?
Well, I just started the channel back in October. I'd always been watching channels like We Watched a Movie and Movie Timelines and Dead Meat and stuff like that. And I really liked how the horror community interacted with each other and how they all supported with each other. And I've loved horror since like forever pretty much. So I really wanted to kind of get in on it. And I decided to create Camp Blood Media so I could connect with other horror fans because I don't really actually know a lot of people in my general life that really like horror. So since starting it in October, I've actually got to connect with so many people, and it's been so amazing. I've been getting to do videos about fan films that are coming up because, as many of you know, there's a Friday the 13th lawsuit, so they can't make movies for that. So we've got a whole mess of Friday the 13th fan films coming, and I've been doing videos on those and trailer reactions and all kinds of stuff like that. And I've been really loving it to know everybody.
Dude, the horror community, I've talked about this on here before. It's one of the best communities in the world, man. The minute you become a part of it, you're family, and people will do whatever they can to help you in any way that they possibly can. And
You are all my children now!
so now let's get into it, man. Let's talk about what got you started in the horror world. Your first horror movie, and your first horror movie was
Wes Craven's New Nightmare, the seventh Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Let's
Oh,
Go.
what an awesome
Now,
film.
what I can say is this is the first time I've been able to talk about New Nightmare, and something I've been very vocal about for a very long time is I am a huge fan of Scream. I think Scream revitalized the horror genre. I think without Scream, horror wouldn't be what it is today. However, if it was not for Wes Craven's New Nightmare, we would not have had Scream. I strongly believe that this was his first foray into doing something meta. And when he's seen the success that this brought him and how it brought Freddy Krueger back from being what he was in The Dream Child and Freddy's Dead and really making this a horror franchise again with still having it be meta, he's seeing that he was onto something, which brought us Scream. So Wes Craven's New Nightmare will always have a very special place for me in my heart. Do you remember how old the first time you were when you watched this, Josh?
I actually do. I was 4 years old. Very,
What
very
an
young
age
to
to
be
see
watching
this, man.
it.
Because for those that haven't seen New Nightmare, it comes off the tails of Freddy's Dead. But this is in no way, shape, or form that Freddy Krueger. I mean, to be honest with you, it's not even Freddy Krueger in this movie. It is, but it isn't. It's a demon. It's hard to explain unless you've seen the movie, but it's scary again. This is an absolute horror movie again. Do you remember who you were with the first time you watched it?
Actually, I was by myself. When my parents were watching it in the living room, I was in my room and I heard all these noises coming, and I was like, "What is going on?" So I crept over to my door, opened my door slowly so my parents wouldn't hear me. Crept up the hallway and peered around the corner, and I could see this big claw coming down out of the clouds and grabbing this kid, and I was like, "What is going on? What is this movie?" And then
And
from
it's
then
funny you
on,
mention that because something I've always talked about, the only really scenes that bother me in this movie are the ending, which we'll get to in a little bit, but the cloud, like how you have the Freddy cloud that comes down and picks the kid up, and then he looks over and sees like the army of Freddys that are coming to the wall, but which I do respect. They make that scene really quick. If you notice, they cut that scene really quick because it's practical effects. It's all just a bunch of real people running. But when you pause it on it, it looks so bad. But I'd rather do that than a bunch of CGI Robert Englund's running up there. So much mad respect for doing it practically. Now, this is a movie where there are a lot of terrible scenes, especially for a 4-year-old, because you have Dylan in here, and he's going through a lot too, and he's a young kid. But which scene from New Nightmare affected you the most?
oh, this is so easy. So when Nancy's walking outside, or Heather, sorry, and she's going to talk to her father, not actually her father, but John Saxon, and she has to fulfill the role of Nancy one last time, and you see Dylan's bed starts shaking and Freddy starts coming up out of the mattress. When I saw that as a kid, I was like, this guy can come up out of my bed? Like, it horrified me. I was terrified this guy was going to come up in my bed and get me.
And one thing I love about that scene before that, we were talking about with Heather and Nancy, how she's like, "Why do you keep calling me Nancy, John?" And he's like, "Why do you keep calling me John, Nancy?" Like, I love that. And then she just breaks down, and he's like, "I love you, Nancy," and she's like, "I love you too, Daddy." Like, I absolutely love that scene, man. So when you think about New Nightmare, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
So nowadays, I always think about that scene where Heather's laying in her room watching the news and she keeps trying to shut off the TV and it comes back on. And then she has that quake and she goes over to the closet and he's like, "Miss me," and he jumps out and comes at her. Like, that's probably my favorite scene in the whole movie because she actually sees him for real for the first time.
Right. And that's it's so hard to talk about this movie for people that haven't seen it because, like I said, it is Freddy, but it's not Robert Englund's Freddy. It's a demon that's taken the form of Freddy, and it's very intelligent, but it's hard to explain.
Mhm.
So with this movie, there's not very many kills in this movie. They are few and far between, but the kills that you get are really fucking good. So, what is your favorite kill in the movie?
Oh, this one is easy too. It's kind of a replication of the kill from the original, but
The
when
hospital.
babysitter is standing in the hospital with Dylan and she's talking to him and he's freaking out and she's like, "You're scaring me. What's going on?" And then he's like, "Have you ever played Skin the Cat?" And he just starts clawing the crap at her and dragging her out the wall. Like, I love that kill so much.
Mm-hmm. And what I like about it, like you said, it is kind of an homage to Tina's kill from the original Nightmare on Elm Street. But in this one, in the original one, you don't see Freddy at all. All you see is Tina going up the wall and her and Rod, Tina! But in this one, you see Freddy as they're doing it too. And I think that it's so amazing the way that they did it, but they made it their own at the same time. Like being able to watch Freddy as all this is happening is such a powerful scene. And even towards the end of the scene, the babysitter reaches her hand out and Dylan's reaching out for her just like it's in the, just like the original. So that's something I've always thought was really good too. But another kill in this movie that I think gets overlooked because of how great the hospital one is when the husband's driving home and the glove comes up through the seat of the truck and then just jumps up and gets him in the chest and then he crashes the truck and it kills him. Like that's such a good kill. And that's so cool. I hate saying cool because someone died, but when they go to his funeral, a bunch of the players like Jesus Garcia, who played Rod in part 1, and people from part 3 and 4 are all at his funeral. Like that's how meta it is. Like they bring those actors back for his funeral, which I thought was really cool. So we talked about Wes Craven's New Nightmare, Josh, and how that affected you. That was your first horror movie. But now, my friend, I got to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie, Josh? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Well, that's a loaded question. Uh, I think it comes
And
down to two
I
different.
say this a lot. I never, ever, when I send people my list of questions, I never include this question because I don't want people to go and study it. I want it off the fucking seat of your pants, bro. I want to know right now. If you had to choose right now what your favorite movie is without thinking, what would your favorite be?
Honestly, the first one that came to my mind was Halloween 2. I know that would be kind of surprising for people to hear, but I find it's kind of like a two for one. You get a bit of the ending of Halloween 1 right at the start, and then you get the full Halloween 2. So if I had to pick one right off the top of my mind, it would be Halloween 2 because I really liked that movie. I love how he gets to actually chase Laurie a lot more in that movie than he does in the first movie.
Mhm.
I just like how I don't know, I like everything about that movie. I know it's not everyone's favorite, but I am really mad that they erased it for Halloween 2018.
I get it, man. And that's what I love about horror movies because they can affect us in different ways. Me personally, not a big fan of Halloween 2. I think it's boring. No offense. But I can't tell you how many times in my life I've said, 6 times! I shot him 6 times! Like Loomis is fucking full blown psycho in this movie, man. And it's so great. Like, I love Dr. Loomis. I think what I dislike about this movie is how disinterested Jamie Lee Curtis seems throughout the whole movie. She just seems like she doesn't give a shit throughout the whole movie. And I think it really brings it down, man. I can really feel that she doesn't want to be there, it feels like her acting in this movie compared to some of the other roles, even non-horror roles that she's done, seems really stale and bland. And I think that's the thing that really did it in for me. But to each their own, man. I'm a really, really big fan of Cabin in the Woods. And I have a lot of people that don't like that movie. In the last 10 years, that's probably, I think, the best horror movie that's come out, hands down, not even close. So I get that argument a lot too. And I think that's one of the most perfect horror movies ever made.
I definitely like that. I like that movie a lot. It's really good. There's a lot of great kills, and I love the ending where they show you all the different monsters and stuff. I thought that was a great movie.
Yes, dude. It was so sick. Like, And I'm a huge fan of Left 4 Dead, the video game. And
Oh,
like you got the boomer and the witch when they're showing that. That was so rad, dude, when we watched it for the first time. My son actually pointed out the boomer. He was like, Dad, that looked like the boomer. And we paused. I was like, holy shit, you're right.
good
And
eye.
a good friend of mine, she does the TGIF podcast and she has guests come on and they dissect the movie. And her and I did The Cabin in the Woods. And, when I was rewatching and taking all my notes, the whole time I was just like, God, this movie's fucking perfect. Like it'll make you, to me, if you're introducing somebody to the horror world, it's the perfect movie to start them with because there's comedy, there's horror, there's love. It's a little bit of everything, sci-fi, even a little bit. So, my friend, before we go, I want to go back to Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And what we always end this with is a skull count, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. Now, we are not film critics. We are not critiquing this film on how good or bad it is. We're not talking about the lighting. We're not talking about production. We're talking about what this film means to you and how it affected you. So 0 to 5 skulls, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. What would your ranking be, my friend?
I gotta give it a 4.5 out of 5 skulls. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it affected me on a big scale when I was younger. Like, it stuck with me for a long time. It actually took for like a year or two later till I saw Freddy's Dead. I didn't know that that came before it, but it took me to see that movie to actually finally get over the like scaredness from that movie.
Yeah,
And nowadays, I just find it so good with the meta-ness of like talking back to the original and like having Heather play Nancy one last time and having Freddy come into the real world to get her. Like, I love all that and how it's like a precursor to Scream, like you said. I just think it's a really great Nightmare on Elm Street movie, even though it's not actually Freddy doing the
right.
killings.
Well, see, and I agree with you. The only thing that's always, and ever since I was young, the thing that's always held this movie back for me was the ending. I'm a little bit older than you, so I seen this when I was a little bit older, and it's a demon that's coming to get them, and they kill it by putting it in fire. That's just something to me that's always been like, what?
Mhm.
Like they drown the fish? Like what's going on here? Um, but like you said, it is scary. There's a lot of good kills in this movie. There's not a lot of kills, but the kills are great. Even the first kill, when the glove comes to life and it gets the dude in the neck, yeah, and then it gets the other dude in the chest, and that's it's so much fun because it's a mechanical glove, so it's all really realistic. But another great thing about this movie is it's scary all the way through,
Mhm.
which it likens back to the first one. And one thing I've always said about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and I dare somebody to prove me wrong on this, every single one of these movies, no matter how great they are, I think A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, is the best horror movie ever made. I've said that numerous times.
That's
It is
very
I think it's the best. It's not my favorite, but I think overall quality, everything, it's the best horror movie ever made. It would be a perfect movie if it had a different ending. And that takes me back here. Every Nightmare on Elm Street movie has a fucking shitty ending. Even the Dream Warriors. Everybody says Nightmare 3 is the great movie. They kill him by putting holy water on his bones. Like it's so even your shirt, the Dream Master. They show him a mirror and everything starts ripping out of him. Like the only Nightmare on Elm Street movie I thought had a good ending, and people were like, "What?" The remake. I love Freddy coming through the mirror and getting the mom through the face and pulling her back in the mirror. That's the only night, and the movie was garbage, but I think the ending was great. And I think that's the only problem Nightmare on Elm Street has had as a franchise is they don't know how to end a movie. It's like they write this really great movie and they don't know how to fucking end it. I mean,
Mhm.
Nightmare on Elm Street 1, you have a blow up doll go back through the window in a fucking Freddy car. Like, it's the worst ending, man, but to a great movie. So, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, out of all of them, I would say has at least a decent ending. I just don't like that they killed a demon with fire. I wish we could see what's up with Dylan now, Dylan's New Nightmare on YouTube. But, maybe someday we'll be able to see that a little bit more, Dylan's New Nightmare on YouTube. So, anything you'd like to add before we end this, my friend?
I would say if there's anybody who watched New Nightmare back in the day and they didn't really like it because it wasn't a typical Nightmare on Elm Street movie, give it another watch because it's actually really good. I'd say watch the first one and then watch this one right after it because there's so many connections between the two, and I think you'll appreciate it a lot more now that you're older than maybe if you watched it when you were younger.
Perfect example. I totally agree with you. I know I said it at the beginning, but guys, please make sure you're clicking the links down here in the description. Follow Josh. Follow, follow Camp Blood Media. I'm not that much of a redneck. I give him a follower over there.
No worries.
Follow Camp Blood Media. Make sure you're checking these guys out. He's working his ass off to try to get you new content all the time. So, Josh, don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. everybody else, as always, I'm Ken Sledge. Keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.